Hey everyone, David C. Anderson here coming at you from the Knife Center, and it's our favorite time of the week. A bunch of cool knives hit our shelves every week, and these are the coolest right in front of me. All right, starting off with an exclusive release. This is the latest version of the Liong Cuff series of kitchen utility folders. This is the Cuff 3.5 with a 3.5-inch blade in MagnaCut steel, coming in at $300 for this version right here. Really cool blade. You've got sort of a modified sheep's foot going on with an upward sweep to the slight amount of belly that it's got going on, and combine that with the straight handle that kicks up, you've got a little bit of clearance for cutting board work, whether you're slicing on a cutting board or even doing a little bit of that old choppy mince thing. It's a technical term, look it up. You've got the clearance you need with this type of design right here. Now the handles are actually constructed in a pretty cool way too. They're calling it monoblock construction. So the titanium handles, the back is the frame lock, or the back contains the frame lock, and that's kind of done conventionally as you would expect. But it's not an integral, but the front scale does loop over the back. It's milled out of a single piece and connected very tightly, almost seamlessly, but you can see the seam right there. So you don't get the same amount of strength that you might get from an integral folder, but you do get that same type of seamless transition from one side to the next. So very smooth, no pinch points, no hot spots that are going to be caused by that area back there, and that is pretty cool. Pocket clip is milled titanium. You've got a ball bearing for the pinch point, and you've got a really nicely executed hidden lanyard post there at the back with plenty of clearance for wider fobs if that is your thing. Lockup, super stable, very tight indeed. But let's check out the flipping action from the closed position. Reverse flicks very, very nicely indeed. That's the only way I want to open this. Yeah, you can thumb open it, but come on. That's really good. Feels really, really nice. Now beyond the kind of the name of the game, the name of the knife anyway, the kitchen utility, this is just a well-built utility folding knife. You've got that nice, comfortable handle that locks the blade open super securely. You've got a strong blade steel here. MagnaCut, of course, holds an edge. It is stainless and it is very tough as well, so you can really muscle through some cuts. And you've got the geometry to support both decent slicing, actually very good slicing, and strength for those heavier cuts too. Really cool combination. Right now, at least, you can only get these from the Knife Center, so check them out. Next up, we've got a limited version of the Chupacabra from Tactile Knife Company. This is one of their seasonal releases. This is the Sprout version. Comes in this nice sour apple flavored handle right here. This is coming in at about $329. US made with a MagnaCut blade here as well. 3.3 inches long, more of a gentle type of modified sheep's foot here with a high flat grind stone washed finish here. That's going to hide your scratches quite nicely. And of course the handles, they are aluminum in this case, and they get that nice colored anodization right there, accenting with this kind of burnt orange thumb studs, back spacers or barrel spacers, and pocket clip as well, with some cool leaf-like detailing on that. And this knife is using the Super Lock, designed by Snex Tan. You've seen it on other knives like the Vision, that sort of thing. Well, you can see it here on the Chupacabra as well. What that gives you is nice ambidextrous action. Works great, left or right. Works better as a lefty in the left hand if you are a lefty than if you're a righty, but even I can do it just fine. Good action, finger-safe closing action, as you can see as well. Fingers stay away from that edge quite nicely, and you get that really cool wrist flick. If you want to use the thumb studs, you get that double click thing going on, which is very satisfying too. Now, even though the lock itself is ambidextrous, the pocket clip here is right side only. Unfortunately for the lefties out there, you will have to contend with that. But it feels good in the hand. It's a little bit heavier than you might think for its size. It's got a little bit of weight to it. Not obnoxiously so. It's like 4.7 ounces, so it's not super heavy, but maybe slightly heavier than I would have expected. But that does, of course, impart a feeling of rigidity to it as well. Not that I have any doubts with something like the Super Lock there. It's just going to work quite nicely indeed. Next up, we've got a couple of Maserins to show you. The first is called Power. Good
Speed
name.
and power.
Speed and power. These start the G10 handle at about $155. If you want this blue silver fat carbon, or sorry, black and silver fat carbon here, this is coming in about $173. Blade is a modified drop point. I say modified because you just got this kind of cool thing going on at the top. It's a drop point. So yeah, this is a drop point. 3.15 inches long and 690 steel. Good all-around blade shape, you know, with a little bit of flair. Just everyday carry, general utility, without being something specific or specialized in terms of blade shape. It's just going to get the job done. We've got a deep carry pocket clip on this knife. Very deep carry, mounted from the tail, and it is actually reversible in this case, which is cool because everything here is completely ambidextrous. You've got what they're calling the W lock. Operates kind of similarly to the super lock we looked at there, maybe even more similarly to something like Cold Steel's Atlas lock, at least in terms of how you actuate it. And you pull back on this. It looks almost like a lockback, right? Like you would push in, you actually pull back towards the tail end of the knife. And it's a little small to do one-handed with this knife. It's kind of, at least for my hand size, any smaller and it would be unusable. But as it is, it works okay enough, I would say. I'm actually more comfortable using this as a two-handed opening and closing knife. You know, just using your thumb to actuate it right there. That's a little more comfortable for me. Your mileage may vary, of course. Part of that's due to, again, the size, but also as you push it back, you see it protrudes out there from the tail. So if you're gripping this knife in the palm of your hand like so, and trying to actuate that, you can actually feel the lock moving on your hand right there, which could impede the action just a little bit. But as you can see, I am still pulling it off, so there is that. Feels good in the hand though. I mean, the handle it does have some shape to it, but it is neutral enough that it should fit a wide variety of hand sizes, and it feels good. Fills the hand satisfyingly enough, and you know, you could push this a little harder than a roughly 3-inch blade might normally be pushed, and the geometry of the blade backs it up. Not super thin, and you've got about a, we'll call that a saber grind there with flat geometry, to use more words than necessary to describe a thing. So it's got a little bit of that, little bit of extra muscle for its size, I would say. Cool pivot hardware too. We've got decorative on the back with the adjustability and a kind of keyed shield here on the front. This next knife from Maserin also uses their W lock, and this one I think is definitely a two-hander no matter what your hand size is. This is called the W2. Shown here in gray G10 with an M390 blade. These are coming in about $223. For $240, just under $240, not a huge jump up from this. You can get a much more premium handle though. You could get some fat carbon options, which look pretty good. Blade just over 3 inches long here. Straight up sheep's foot with a straight edged blade. Flat ground geometry. Saber height, up to you to decide. I'm being a little snarky with the saber grind thing here right now, but that's okay. Also, like the power we just looked at, it's a little bit of that, in between, small size, but a little bit more muscle for bigger cuts. Again, geometry a little bit thicker than it might have to be, so to speak, with a slightly more stout grind. Means you can push it pretty hard when you need to. And the handle feels good for that too. Held back here behind the finger groove, it's a 3.5 finger grip for me, but this nice flat space around the pivot area right there makes a great place for my index finger to sit, and then I can get a real full ham-fisted grip on this knife indeed. The reason I say this is a two-hander though, it uses the same lock, but there's very little to actually grab onto, and Thomas and I both tried this. Neither of us actually can even get it to go when doing it that way, but thumb actuation, super easy. So, two-hand closer anyway. One-hand opener, quite easily, but two hands for the closing I think is a better way to go. But let's get back to the comfort of that handle a little bit. No pocket clip here. So if that's something of concern for you, you will likely want to stay away from it. But as a result of that, no pocket clip to get in the way of the handle just feeling good. So there is that to consider as well. So sometimes we have people in the comments that complain there's not enough fixed blades on these new knives videos. To which the reply is always, these are about what is new this week, and there's fewer fixed blades on the market than folders, unfortunately, because I'm a fixed blade guy too. This is your week, boys and girls.
Be careful what you ask.
We got a fair number of fixed blades on the table today. We're going to start with some smaller ones. Two here from Maserin. I don't know if that's how you pronounce his name, actually. If I'm butchering it, which I very well may be, I apologize. We've got two very similar knives here. We've got the SCUTTLER with a roughly 2-inch D2 blade, and we have, what's this one called? The Cobbler with about a 2.9-inch D2 blade. $35 on sale at the moment for this Cobbler, and $32 for the SCUTTLER. And it's interesting, like if you look at these two products side by side on the website, on their individual product pages, this one looks like it should be the bigger knife because the handle's so much longer proportionally than the Cobbler right here, but the Cobbler is, as you can see, the larger knife here. Let's start with the smaller one, the SCUTTLER. 3.5 finger grip for me. A little on the small side. This is definitely slightly daintier in its presentation, which should enable you to get some really fine cuts with that modified sheep's foot blade right here. Very cool stuff. That's kind of the cool thing about these sheep's foot blades, especially these kind of ones that live on the modified side of the spectrum, that starting to get close to like a Wharncliffe area. And in fact, this might lean a little bit in that direction. You've got the things you need for a powerful push cut, and you've got very acute tip control over the blades as well, which is pretty cool. I like the control surfaces of this as well, with the fuller kind of coming up from the skeletonized part of the handle, gives you a little bit of extra traction for different grips. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Let's check out the sheath. There was a sheath, wasn't there? Yes, Mr. Thomas. There it is. It is Kydex. You've got a simple hook style arrangement right there. A little bit trickier on this one to pull out because of the size and orientation of it. If you're not into the clip, let me check to see if it'll fit any of the popular aftermarket hardware. It looks like large Tech-Lock will fit that no problem. So it does maintain that hole spacing. So if you want to throw one of those on there or throw an ulti-clip on here, that is also an option. You'll know what else fits if you're into that sort of thing. You likely know what your aftermarket hardware corresponds with hole-wise, so there you go. Now the Cobbler, a little bit more oomph for sure. It's got a more secure feeling grip, a more stable feeling grip for me, more to work with in terms of that blade. On either of these though, do be careful because the edge is sharpened through to that index finger area, so you don't want to slip forward on that. But good control surfaces on this as well. And the sheath on this one is a little bit easier to use, I would say. Just the size of it and all that, you got a really easy push point off on that area. And I would assume, you got the same clip here, I would assume this is also compatible with a large Tech-Lock, but let's check to make sure. Yes, indeed, that'll work, no problems. But it's cool, you could carry it, concealed inside the waistband. You could use it as a neck knife. You could convert this to pocket carry with an ulti clip or something like that. You would have a fair bit of a handle sticking out, but you could do it nonetheless. And then a third Maserin design fixed blade, the Groom. Similar vibes, but you actually have some handle scales here, carbon fiber in this case. Is that carbon fiber on top of G10? Yeah, it looks like it. But you get that cool texture from the carbon fiber here too. It's not just a slick veneer going on. You get some nice tactile feedback going on. As far as the grip here, it could be considered a full 4-finger grip, but you're dealing with this small finger choil area, again, which is sharpened through. My fingers are a little bit too large to kind of comfortably rest there. I would probably, use that very delicately and just kind of ignore these two fingers and more aggressively grip with the back part of my hand in this case. Sorry, fumbles there. 3.08-inch blade. Technically, it's almost identical in sharpened length to the Cobbler we just looked at. Maybe like a skosh longer. But that gets into the trouble of how do you measure blade length on a knife? I think you know the answer, but it's not as simple as you might think, in fact. Anyway, D2 steel on all of these, $46 for this one with the handle scales. Sheath is right here. Nice aggressive click on the Kydex. You've got the slim dots style attachment there. So translation, Tech-Lock hole pattern will be your best bet if you're looking for aftermarket stuff, but these are pretty sweet. And the slim ones don't lock into the closed position like the larger ones do, but they still are very secure when you need them to be. One more Kizer fixed blade before we move on. Don't worry, we'll come back to fixed blades. This is the Jonathan Stiles designed Smolt. And for those of you who know about Jonathan Stiles' work with Kizer, you'll know the Militaw, of course, the folding knife, has some kind of similar vibes to this, which is a smaller knife than the Militaw. Comes in about 69 bucks, 3-inch 3V blade going on here, which is a really cool thing indeed. You do have that coating there because 3V is not a stainless steel, so the coating will help keep rust a little more manageable, or hopefully eliminate it on areas that aren't laser marked with the logos and that sort of thing, or the edge, of course. But a really nice shape for just general everyday carry purposes, I would say. Drop point, almost a full flat grind, not super thin, but not super thick either. So just a good general purpose thickness. It's probably about 3/32 of an inch, I would say. I was wrong. It's almost a full 1/8 of an inch. Let's see what the ruler says, according to the spec sheet anyway. Yeah, see, that feels, it's less than 1/8 of an inch here. That feels more like, anyway. Not an argument we have time for. It's a nice little size and shape. G10 handles, gray with linen micarta inlays with some grooves on there for a little extra traction. Looks good, feels good. Feels good in the grip too. Kind of 3 to 3.5 finger grip for me, but choke up just a little bit, so I'm getting right around the index finger, or the small guard right there. If my index finger bridges that just a little bit, I've got a really solid hold on this smaller knife. That's really nice. Let's check out the sheath here. Same type of 2-row dots style clip right there. Same style of Kydex we just looked at. Just a nice, effective package and a good price. I mean, you know, was it $69? It's a real nice price for some 3V. That's for darn sure. How about a Kizer folder? The Caleb Waldman designed Dogfish flipper. Pretty cool knife here too. 79 bucks, Nitro V blade steel, which is quite nice to see. And hardened a little bit harder on the scale of things, which should give you a bit more edge retention. 61 to 62 is the target on this one. Just over 3 inches long, cool drop point shape with some flare going on with the thumb ramped section here at the back. That thumb ramp works nicely with this broad, shallow choil area at the bottom. We'll call that it's more of a ricasso area, but splitting hairs here. But that works really nicely in conjunction, those two parts right there. I like the relative blade thinness here. Again, just a good all around. This looks like it's about 1/8 of an inch.
We'll see.
We'll see. Crown spine ahead of that jimped thumb ramp area too. Very nice detail, especially at the price. Especially at the price. Handles are micarta with this radial milling going on. Not too deep, but definitely enough to give you some extra traction right there. And you've got the button lock there, which works quite nicely. And you've got 3 deployment methods. Conventional flipping from the back, front flipping from the front. And it worked pretty good for me too, actually. It's good, partly because like a lot of times button locks don't have as crisp or as strong of a detent as like a liner lock front flipper. So it's sometimes a little easier, except for that time. Sometimes I speak too soon. It works fine, darn it. And then you've got the finger hole there. Come on, man.
That's what you get.
I was hot dogging, see? Works fine. It does work fine, ladies and gentlemen. Apologies to Caleb and to Kizer over there. It's a cool shape. It's you know, I appreciate the utility of a drop point blade in general, but it's hard to make drop point blades, you know, spicy. And this one does it. It's got a real graceful spine. You've got that bit of finger or thumb ramp there at the back to break things up visually. I really like what's going on here. Deep carry pocket clip too on the back, which is reversible. So that's a good option for lefties as well, thanks to the utility of the button lock as well. Next up, the Kansept Pretatout. This is a knife that actually really impresses me. Because if I were to just hold this knife up and ask you what you thought it would cost, or if Seth over there had held this up and asked me what I thought it would have cost, I would not have said $93.89, which is the price we're selling it for right now. Because it looks, for all the world, like something way more expensive, way more premium. And the only reason it's not is probably down to the steel. You've got a Damascus blade here, but it's not Damasteel. It's not that powder metallurgy product. I believe they're using that VG10 base of the VG10 based mixture of Damascus steel, which is perfectly fine stuff. It's just not super exotic like the Damasteels. But that's how they get the price on this crazy premium feeling knife under $100 like that, under 95 in fact. We've got a liner lock. We've got these shredded carbon fiber handles going on. We've got gold accents all around with the thumb stud, the pivot hardware, the barrel spacers, even the pocket clip screws holding that milled titanium pocket clip in place. The flipping action, super nice, super crisp. You've even got that fuller running along the spine, which will allow you to, of course, do alternate opening methods such as the reverse flick, which is really good. It feels good in the hand. There's nothing to look at here and go, oh, they could have finished that a little better, or oh, they cut a corner right here or whatnot. It's just spot on. And when you're only paying this kind of money for it, it's kind of unbelievable. And really, for the longest time, that's been what Kansept has done so well. I keep saying Kansept, I'm sorry. I know it's supposed to be pronounced Concept, but I've been saying Kansept for so long. It's been a hard habit to break, I apologize. But, their value for money, they might be, I've said it before, like compared to the other imported companies like these guys, you get a little bit more for your money with Kansept. You just do. Concept. You just do.
Auto captions are going to be fun.
Can you sept it? I don't know what that means.
What a concept.
But the concept of that statement I just made is never been truer than with this version of the Pretatout right here. Just fantastic value. This next knife is just a little bit less expensive, but a lot of bit more smaller. The Kansept Dirk Pinkerton designed Little Main Street, but this is a fancier version, of course. One, you've got S35 VN steel, so you do have powder metallurgy here. 2 1/4 inches long on that blade. Very aggressively straight Wharncliffe blade in this case. It's a cool little cutter, cool little box cutter and package opener for sure, especially when you throw in these cool handles. This copper foil carbon fiber with gold liners, gold thumb studs, gold crossbar lock bar itself, which is cool. And all the screws, pocket clip, whole 9 yards. A milled pocket clip too at this price. Despite the small size, the action's actually pretty darn good. Feels great actually. But yeah, I mean, if you're in need of a small box opener, a small box cutter, the Little Main Street is already a pretty compelling option, and this one is probably my favorite version yet. It's just pretty cool, The big Main Street, or the standard-sized Main Street, is a fair bit bigger, like 3.36 inches on the blade, according to the website, compared to the about 2 1/4 on this. Very different animals from one to the next, but I like this animal right here. He's very nice.
More of a critter.
It's a little bit of a critter. I could go with critter. Next up, the Custom Knife Factory Rotten Designs Evo-T Evolution 4 folding knife. A lot of words there. Check out the brutish nature of this design. Very cool. And whether that auto caption as brutish, like B-R-U-T-E, or brutish, like brooding, like B-R-O-O-D, I think either one would actually apply to the character of this knife right here. You can get it in the more kind of raw finished titanium with their bark milling, that they're calling it, for about $650. This version right here with the red fat carbon, I believe it's fat carbon. Yep, red fat carbon inlays front and back is about $685. Both of them come with a hollow ground S90V blade with this. Well, that's kind of a reverse Tonto, don't you think, Thomas?
That'll do.
Tonto blade. So super steel with a super thin edge thanks to that hollow grind and the fact that they actually brought the thickness way, way down for that edge. That is going to bite into stuff in a very, very satisfying way, and that edge is going to last quite well also. Feels good in the hand too. It's got a bit of that kind of Strider knives vibe going on, where you get that area to choke up right behind the blade there, and you get the rest of the handle flaring back. It's definitely not copying the Strider design language, but it's got a bit of that kind of philosophy, I would say, in its handle design. Bit of contouring to that handle, I should say, as well, which also helps make it quite comfortable, and really cool fluting on the inlays, giving it a nice visual feature because you do pick up on that a little bit as you turn it around, and a little bit of texture for grip too. The lockup is super solid. Of course, you've got the lock bar insert on the end there. There is the folded shape right there, little pocket clip. Action is quite good indeed. Works great with the thumb or the back fingers. Yeah, just super nice, man. Cool vibes going on. Feels every bit the premium price that it is, which is good because it is a premium price, so it better feel like it. All right, next up, similar aesthetic vibes perhaps, but very different. What if I were to say to you, dear viewer, tactical slip joint? Would you be intrigued? Thomas, would you be intrigued?
Might slip by.
You're just waiting to go home, aren't you? Well, we have a tactical slip joint for you. The TASknives or Task Custom Invaderling tactical slip joint. Full custom right here. Look at it. So here's your slip joint back spring right here. You can actually see the claw that comes down and interfaces with the tang of that blade, which is cool. Nitro V blade, 3 3/8 of an inch long. Quite compound ground indeed going on. You've got hollow grind here, you've got flat grind towards the tip, you've got a hollow ground swedge, and you've got dual fullers on the thing, and Nitro V steel, which is a pretty cool choice as well. The handles are titanium, a couple different layers going on, creating quite the visual spectacle. And you almost want to, given we've had some of those spine mounted locks before, I almost want to grab this and flick it. But you can't do that because it is a slip joint. How about that? You can one hand open it, of course, and in use, I wouldn't go around using it as a tactical knife. I think the tactical part of tactical slip joint is more about styling than actual utility, but you do get some safety measures involved in this non-locking knife, because if it were to close, if you've got a solid grip on the knife, that blade is going to hit your finger before it closes further. It's maybe not as aggressive as some other styles of this knife that have built-in safety measures like that, but it is still there for sure and should give you a little bit of extra degree of safety going on. Oh, I just noticed this too. Cool details. Check out the floating nature of that slip joint back spring back there. It's suspended from either side of the handles there. It's pretty cool. You're going to pay for that coolness though. It is a $700 knife at this point in time. Next up, we had an almost integral at the beginning of the video, made by Reate actually. Those Liong maws are made by Reate. Now we have an actual Reate branded integral GTR flipper, $450 for these. And this is one where the more you look at it, the more you catch going on. And it's just very, very cool. I'll get to that in a minute, but let me just say off the top, Reates are always finished very, very finely. That said, this might be one of the more intricate feeling, precise feeling builds from Reate that I've ever seen. It's just very, very nice, very cool stuff, and a lot to appreciate. 3.6-inch harpoon-tipped M390 blade with a hand-rubbed horizontal grain. I'm assuming it's hand-rubbed, but a real premium-feeling horizontal grain on there. Quite nice indeed. And every which way you look at these titanium handles, there's something going on. It is integral, like I mentioned, but it's got tons of stuff. Cheese grater front is what we're calling it right here. It's not actually sharp. You're not actually going to grate cheese, but you got a little bit of the vibes here with the holes at the back. Got kind of a honeycomb lattice going on in here in this sunken in portion. You've got this vented spine, which is pretty cool, which can actually be helpful if you're, one thing about an integral is they can sometimes be a little harder to clean out. You've got a little like drain spot there if you need to actually flush out the inside of the handles right there. And I should say the insides of those handles are finished just as neatly and as finely as the outsides too. I like the inlays here, or the section, yeah, I'd call that an inlay, with some vent ports there. I like the way how on the back it provides this little nesting spot for the screw that holds the lock bar interface in place, which is pretty neat as well. Milled pocket clip, some nice lines going on there. I like the concave nature of the pivot ring, and probably my favorite detail is not just a visual one, but it's also an ergonomic one, and that's this thumb area right here. Behind that, you've got this almost peaked or steepled spine, we'll say, and then it goes flat for this section right here, and is also milled out at a diagonal on the inside. So it does two things. One, in hand, when you put your thumb there, it just feels so comfortable, so nice. And also because of that internal bevel, it's a great landing spot for the flip when you do that. It's just super comfortable and just super premium feeling. I don't know what any other way to describe it. Just excellent. Next up, we've got a couple of Bokers. First one is from the Boker Plus line. This is a John Kubicek design called the Escort, coming in at about $76 right now. You've got a 3.5-inch Nitro V blade, upswept, almost an upswept blade. It's more of it is actually a drop point, but a lot of belly going on there with a hollow grind. Should be a really nice slicer. Flipper tab here, and I'm not totally in love with the placement of the flipper tab. It works quite well. I mean, nothing to complain about there. You can probably hear how nice that is. But it doesn't feel as cohesive to me with the design of the handle here. It feels kind of protruding, and it does create a pretty abrupt stop for your index finger. It's going to keep your index finger from moving forward, that is for sure, but maybe not as comfortable as some other designs there. You do have the option of choking up, however. You've got a nice broad section here to place your index finger if you should wish. But what I really like about the knife is how slim the whole package is. Stainless steel handles, thin as can be. Well, could be thinner, I guess, but it doesn't need to be thinner. Very nicely thin, tail-mounted deep carry clip. One-sided is right side only. However, it's going to be a super easy knife to carry, super flat carrying when you need it to be, which it's going to be whether you need it to or not, and a lot of cutting potential with the blade length you've got going on for it right there. Very cool. Check that out. $76 and some change right there. Next up from Boker, this is actually from their Magnum line, which is usually a budget line or a quite budget line, but this is not a budget Boker Magnum. This is their 2024 collection 2024 knife. It is serialized. This is number 917 of 1,999. And it's coming in at $138 right now. And it is very nice indeed. We've got 440 forged steel. I'm not sure, doesn't specify whether it's 440A or 440C. So I could hazard a guess, but I'm not going to because I don't want to be incorrect on here. But man, is it gorgeous. Like the integral bolster here, the milling is super nice. The handles are quilted maple, dyed a bit on the darker side. You don't actually see much quilting on it, but check out the shape. How excellent are those contours? And it feels great in the hand. The blade length itself is a bit over 4 inches long. You got a full flat grind, a bit thicker on the spine. It almost looks like they scaled up a paring knife, quite honestly. But in terms of use case for this, I think the best fit for this would definitely be a hunting knife for sure. You've got a manageable blade length. You've got enough belly for doing, skinning and quartering. Not quartering, but skinning and butchering tasks in the field. Crown spine that feels great. I mean, you could choke up on it, being careful not to poke yourself on that back edge. It's not really a bushcraft knife. It's not really a survival knife, but it's not really a kitchen knife either. It's a bit too thick for a knife this size, at least in terms of the kitchen uses that I'm used to. But as an outdoor hunting knife, so nice. Just so nice. The sheath, sorry for it being shrink wrapped over here, but it is leather with a simple belt loop on the back. Impressive for $138. The Zolling made, German made integral fixed blades like this are considerably more expensive. So good way to get into that style without spending as much. Speaking of not spending as much, we've got picked up a new brand here at KnifeCenter recently, Takumitak, and I'm going to kind of breeze through the models here at the end because they're all following a similar playbook. D2 steel, full tang, between 4 and 5 inches more or less, and all of them are at like $59.95 right now on the site. Let's start with the Sentinel right here, kind of a small Smatch-It inspired design, double-edged. Very, strong feeling grinds. Slim tapered G10 handle. All of them have black G10 handles here as well. Again, specs wise, they're all kind of the same, just different shapes to play around with. Definitely gives you that Smatch-It-y vibe. Let's check out the sheath on this one, and then I'm going to ignore the sheaths from here on out, because again, these are also all about the same. And they're sitting over here in a pile. There we go. Of course, the one for this was on the bottom. The sheaths here are actually already at, the specs I've listed: D2 steel, full tang with this kind of thickness. I mean, that's like 3/16ths of an inch thick on these guys with D2 steel and G10. At $60, it's already good. It's already good value. But when you throw in these actual Kydex sheaths, not injection molded sheaths, with a tech lock, full-size tech lock, and with versatile lashing slots and holes, riveted grommeted holes, super good value. Any kind of aftermarket solution you might want to put on here, you can make work, I am sure. And on top of that, it comes with the tech lock right there. I mean, super high value for all these. And they feel super well put together. I mean, I have zero complaints about the construction of these, especially at the price. I mean, look how flush those handle scales are. They look like they're finished once bolted on. So you get a cleaner transition. You get that nice finish on the spine of the blade as well. This next one is called the Alert. It's got a 5-inch D2 blade with this kind of swashbuckling shape going on, almost like a clipped Saxy style blade. Very cool. G10 again. You've actually got a almost a sharp point here at the back for striking. The protruding tang right there. Black stonewashed finish on this one. Kind of an aggressive tactical vibe for this, for sure, I would say. Wouldn't really be a Skinner or a food prepping knife, although it might be fun to play around doing that sort of thing. Next up, let me pull up the right tab here. Of course, I put them down on the table in a different order than I have my tabs open. The Escort, 5.5-inch blade. That looks like more than 5.5 inches. Hang on, let me measure this real quick. All right, yeah, just a skosh over 5.5 inches, actually. When measured from the tip of the scale. That's part of that, what makes it look longer. You've got all this exposed section around the leading edge of the G10 handle there that makes the blade look longer, which visually can be a cool thing. Plenty of handle real estate on this one. This is the first time I've mentioned my hand size in this video. They are slightly larger than average, but you can see I've got another finger to finger and a half worth of length on the back end right here. This one's a little bit slimmer than the others, so it carries a little bit flatter. As far as the edge profile itself, you've got, is that a clip or a jump point? Is that straight? Yep, that's a straight clip point right there. You've got a hollow ground section with serrations at the back and a flat ground section at the tip for more strength. So you've got compound grinds at a $60 price point for this fixed blade. And you got the sawback with the kind of file edged portion here on that side. So definitely tactical. It kind of has survival knife vibes, although for a survival knife, I'd want to be able to carve with the design, and this one definitely has the serrations to get in the way. But you've got the holes in the tang there that, survival spear style of things going on. Next up, the Takumi 4.5-inch D2 blade. This one, is it a little thicker? No, it's still about the same, I would say. Yeah. Actually, this one's a tiny bit thinner. That one looks like about 5/32 of an inch thick, the Escort we just looked at. But as far as the Takumi right here, more conventional drop point shape, high flat grind, definitely a good all-purpose thing. I'm not a huge fan of these, the jimping here on the back. That kind of does bite me a little bit there, so I would probably wind up modding that personally if I were carrying this. But other than that, the handles on this one feel pretty good. Nice fluting or milling going on there. Gives you some good traction points without raising hot spots. It's a pretty nice general purpose knife right there. Again, apart from those back jimping, I don't like that very much. And last but not least, we've got another double-edged knife. This is called the Hitter. 5.5 inches of D2 on this one. We've got the lashing holes there. Slimmer G10 handles on this one, just like the Escort, so it carries a little flatter. And again, tons of handle length on this. I mean, that's almost 2 extra fingers worth of length right there. Let me actually, yeah, I could fit 6 fingers on this side. So if I were a 7-fingered bloke, I would use all of this handle. But alas, I am not. Your mileage may vary. Check them out. Those are just, that is not every Takumitak fixed blade we recently added to the site, but we'll just point you to the brand page in the links below. That's it. For today anyway, for this week anyway. Let me know what you thought of the knives down in the comments, and if you want to get your hands on any of them, check out the links in the description, which will take you to KnifeCenter.com. Don't forget about our long-running Knife Rewards program while you're there, because the least thing we can do when you buy one of these knives today is give you some free money to spend on your next one. I'm David C. Anderson from the Knife Center, and that's Thomas behind the camera, and we are signing out. See you next time.